Good day, you're watching our expert program. I'm Жаната Ежанова. Today we are going to talk about decision support information. Let me introduce our guest, Mr. Paul Bradley, who is the Managing Director of SPOCE Company. Paul, welcome to Atomic Business Channel. Welcome to Kazakhstan. I know that you have been here 2 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you again. Now we are going to talk about decision support information in business.
Okay.
Yeah. And first of all, I'd like to know what you mean about decision support information.
Yes, business decision support information is largely based around ensuring that senior management have the correct information available to them in order to make the best decision on behalf of the business.
Yeah.
We have a number of planning cycles within most businesses where we plan how the business will progress strategically over a period of maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And this will identify a number of change initiatives. And in order to make good decisions based on real information to support these change initiatives,
mm-hmm.
then decision needs to be made based on the information from our teams, whether they be project teams, operational teams, or directors, so that the information that we are given supports this overall strategy and that we can retain our operational activity in line with our strategic goals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you mentioned about businesses managing by project. What does this mean?
Yes, I mentioned projects within there. We're seeing more and more in industry and in business that organisations are managing by project.
Yeah.
Traditionally, project management has been found in the IT departments of many organisations.
Yeah.
When you ask people where do your projects exist within your organisation, typically the response will be that they are in the IT department. Over the last 10 to 15 years, there has been a clear shift where projects have been owned and managed within the business parts of the project. And while projects have a large IT element to them, it's the business that owns projects within any organisation. And the IT and technical skills will be the supplier to the business. And where we look back over the last 20 years of maturity of projects, we are seeing more and more organisations of all sizes and types are managing all initiatives under a project environment. So we're not seeing project management applied to large initiatives. Sometimes smaller projects and even tasks and work streams are managed under a project culture so that we can understand what needs to be done, how it should be done, and who should be kept informed.
Thank you. What about managing by program, managing by portfolio of
Yes.
projects and program?
Absolutely. We've seen a lot of project management development in various methods and approaches.
Yeah.
Projects are existing in order to produce an output, something new for the organisation. This is all very well to have project management process to successfully deliver and implement within time and cost and to quality. Unfortunately, sometimes this is not enough for an organisation, because if we stop at the project implementation, we fail to transition our business by making effective use of these business products. So to employ a program management approach will ensure that we have business change managers that will use these products and make sure that the organisation achieves a better outcome. And it's only through achieving an outcome, which is essentially a different way of working through these new products, that we will finally achieve the benefits that we set out to do. In organisations who have multiple programs and multiple projects, a portfolio management approach could be employed, where we will ensure that all projects and programs within our organisation, essentially our portfolio of change, is continually aligned to our strategic goals. And this is where we can more successfully move the organisation forward.
But what is the main difference between program and project?
Yes, it's a good question. In different countries and different cultures, and even in different organisations, terminology is an interesting factor.
Yeah, because it's a problem in our country.
Absolutely, and it's the same in a country like the UK, where we've had a maturity of project management approaches for many decades. There are still organisations and project professionals who refer to a project as a programme. And likewise a programme with a project. The key differences are that projects focus on the output. They focus on implementing a specific requirement within a set amount of resources to a specific time frame. Programmes, on the other hand, are focused on ensuring that stakeholders are engaged in the initiative, and they're also focused on effecting a transition to ensure that when the project implements the product, that product then is used. So within program management, you get a series of people called business change managers who will work with the business in order to ensure that change is actually happening. With a project, once the project has implemented the output, the project closes. And therefore, when you're looking at achieving benefits from the project outputs, if you don't have a program management function, it's left very much to the business to assume that somebody is going to effect that change and have use of the output. By having program management, that change and transition is managed effectively after the project is completed.
Yeah. So, if businesses are managed under project management structure, does this mean there is a need for professional project management within all businesses?
It's an interesting question, because all businesses may not have the resources for professional project management and professional project managers. Professional project management is not exclusive to large organisations with lots of resources and lots of management layers. What we see is when we have corporate organisations or public sector organisations, there are a number of professional project managers and project management resources available. In smaller organisations, I think and I believe that any size organisation can adopt a project culture, and whether there is a professional project management function within an organisation, there should always be an understanding that when we undertake any work, whether it be considered a project or not, we should have a view to understand what needs to be produced, when it should be done by, who is responsible, how much will it cost, how long will it take, and what are the risks that we face. And if we understand this before we start the work, then effectively that is project management. And if we do it in our professional careers, then you could argue that is a professional project management approach. When we have major projects within public sector and private sector, then professional project managers, in the sense of being qualified, I think that helps greatly, because then you are including experience and lessons from having managed projects in different environments and having an understanding of the problems that may be faced, as well as the opportunities that could be taken advantage with.
What if a business does not have a project management function? For example, small business with limited staff.
Yes, I run a training company called SPOCE. We are a global leader for project management methods, of which there are many, as we well know. In my operation in head office, we employ, I think, around about 25 people. So it's not a
25?
Yeah, 25 people employed. Our network of consultants and trainers exceeds 150. But in terms of our office space, it's a very small team by comparison to our global presence.
Of course.
However, having said that, all of our employees are trained. We train all our employees with PRINCE2, with IPMA and other bodies of knowledge. And although sometimes they're not always managing projects, they still have an understanding and an appreciation of a structured approach. And what I've done with my company is instilled a project culture. So even when we look at the operational staff who are not involved in change initiatives, they still look at work streams and activities with a sense of project management to understand what is required and when. Even very small organisations where you may have 2 or 3 people, I think the principles of project management in the respect of business justification and understanding lessons can be applied whether you have a very large team or a very small team.
So what are the drawbacks for employing a project management approach?
Well, the drawbacks of employing project management approaches, there can be drawbacks. The benefits are huge, as we understand. The drawbacks for employing project management approaches can include overuse of processes. When organisations implement frameworks and structures and project management guidance and such, sometimes we may be tempted to over-employ those processes and frameworks. And this can sometimes be obstructive and reduce sometimes the creativity and flexibility that our project teams can provide. And this is usually caused by a lack of understanding of project management and the framework. Most project management frameworks give enough flexibility to ensure that there is control and governance in our project, but also give the freedom for creativity within our development teams and agile approaches and so on and so forth. So we need to try and avoid a bureaucratic approach to managing projects. It's very easy to fall into that trap, but that can be a disadvantage sometimes if it's not implemented properly.
And Paul, how do you see the future of business project management? And how will this support the decision-making for senior management?
Yeah, the future of project management looks very good. 20 years ago, maybe longer, maybe shorter, many people managed their own projects. We didn't really have an industry of professional project management. So, for example, IT teams were managing their own projects. Builders and construction teams were managing their own projects. There weren't independent professional project management functions, if you like. What we've seen over the last 2 decades is the growth of the project management industry. Project management is ubiquitous. It is everywhere. It's not just in business. It is also in other areas. I have my children coming home from school with projects, so they understand what a project is and what project management is. And this is good for business. It's good for the information that we receive as senior managers to make those decisions, because it's based on fact. And I think the future of project management is very exciting, because we do have an industry with qualifications globally, depending on different types of industry bodies and accreditation bodies. And by having a professional project management industry, I honestly believe that this will help businesses and industry, regardless of sector, to deliver their change initiatives in a much more effective way. Because the longer and further we go through the professional project management path, the more we learn, the more we understand, and the more our processes mature. And we just get better at it.
Yeah, I know that there are many standards and project management methods. And in the United Kingdom, the most popular method is PRINCE2. Can you present it briefly?
Yes, indeed. There are many methods. they're not all methods. Some approaches are guidances and bodies of knowledge. PRINCE2 is a project management framework. It's a methodology. It's owned by the UK government. They own half of an organisation called Axelos. And Axelos are in the process of promoting best practice project management. They own PRINCE2. PRINCE2 has been around since 1996. So we're talking, what, over 20 years of project management practice within PRINCE2. It's a framework to ensure that we understand why we are undertaking projects, what the risks are, who's involved, and so on. PRINCE2 provides us with the who, the when, the why, the what. So it's very much the hard side of project management. It doesn't give information very well on how to undertake certain tasks within projects. And it also doesn't cover the soft side of management in terms of leadership and motivation, and negotiation, and so on. So PRINCE2 is very robust and very effective on the process side of project management.
So not competencies?
Not so much competencies, no. It's more the process, okay? With regards other types of methods and guidances, we do have bodies of knowledge which does give you information on the competencies and draws on less...
Like IPMA?
Exactly, like IPMA, like PMI. And they draw on a body of knowledge which is a large referencing to projects that have been completed before, understanding the lessons that they learned through these projects, understanding the best ways of planning and managing risks and managing change, but also managing people and leading teams. So this is more the how. And the processes and framework within the bodies of knowledge are sometimes lacking the robustness and integrity that PRINCE2 provides. So when you're in an organisation and you're looking at project management frameworks and approaches, I do recommend that you consider PRINCE2 as the process framework, and this can marry together with IPMA or PMI for competency and advice and knowledge, and they work very, very well together.
So you and me know a lot of methods, guidance, standards like IPMA, PRINCE2, P2M, PMBOK, and what is the key difference between them? I mean, besides process and competence?
Absolutely. The key difference is largely, as explained, PRINCE2 is very much what should happen, when it should happen, who by. PRINCE2 does give you some information in terms of responsibility. So the project manager may be responsible for planning and for managing risks. PRINCE2 won't tell you how to plan or how to manage risk. So, for example, if your project is to manage, to identify and estimate some risks, PRINCE2 will tell you when this should happen. It won't tell you that perhaps it's more effective to use a 1 to 5 scoring system in risk, or a 1 to 10, or a 1 to 100, because that depends on what industry sector you're working in and the nature of your project. It changes. And various project managers have different ways of managing. If you have one project manager in your organisation, you will have one way of managing projects.
But it's not enough.
But if you implement PRINCE2 and then you have 10 project managers in your organisation, you will still have 10 ways of managing projects because they do it differently. But this is not a bad thing, because we have consistency in the process, but your 10 project managers will be sharing knowledge and information. And essentially, when we look at IPMA and PMI and APM, they draw on the knowledge of the industry for their body of knowledge. So you have a mass of understanding and knowledge and information that is available to the project managers and project resources. While PRINCE2 is providing the largest used global standard for process framework within projects. So you can have the best of both worlds.
In your opinion, for Kazakh business, what is primary, competences or processes?
That's a very good question. a lot of organisations go through the same question. Naturally, I'm going to suggest that both is best. If you're looking at what should happen first, I think with Kazakh businesses, I think when you implement a framework first, that gives you the structure to place competency into. If you just have competency, you still potentially have a lack of control and understanding for the information that's being used within your project. Implementing a project management structure, whether it be PRINCE2 or anything else, implementing a framework is fairly straightforward. The competency will come later over the top of this. And this is my own personal advice and recommendation.
It's a very interesting position.
I do believe that implementing a framework is fairly straightforward. You need to keep all the good practice within your organisation and integrate that with a framework with processes such as PRINCE2. And then what you can do is you can look at where your organisation is strong in terms of you might be very good with risk, or you might be very good with business case, or you might be maybe poor at quality. And once you've done that assessment using those processes, then you can address the competency, because the competency is a much wider matrix. The framework is just dealing with processes of project management. A competency framework, on the other hand, is dealing with the use of those processes, but also the interaction with people, communication, leadership, and also how to deal with external organisations, senior management, project teams. So the competency is a much wider area to incorporate and get right, really. But having the framework in the first place, I think, makes that much more structured and would probably make the competency a little easier to complete.
Paul, you see that managing by projects has become more popular, more actual in our country, not only in business sector, in government, in the state bodies too. So what can you advise for our country in order to develop this type of management?
Yeah, I think that we can help promote a managed by project culture by making these procedures easier. When we look at successful methods such as PRINCE2, the PRINCE2 guidance is 340 pages. 340 pages. It's a big document. It's thick. Yeah. It's difficult to include it into my luggage when I come to Astana because it's heavy. It weighs over a kilo. So sometimes that can be quite daunting for staff and project teams to undertake without formal training. And I think the majority of organisational staff are not project managers. They may be team leaders, or they may be team resources, or they may be operational staff or administrative staff. And when you present those resources with a thick methodology, a large methodology, where do they start? So what we do in the UK is we try and scale right down for the small tasks. And this would include presenting a management summary, which will detail who owns that piece of work and when it should be done by. We'll have an item called a product description, which will detail the criteria for the work, and maybe have a review of any threats that might threaten us as completing this task. So I'm not talking about big projects, I'm talking about simple tasks. We call it mini method. It's just a very small derivative of PRINCE2. The total management work around a mini-method approach could be as little as 1 or 2 hours throughout the whole task of maybe 3 or 4 weeks' work. But what it does is it breeds a culture to the staff to understand first what is required before you start work. And then once you've finished that task, you can write a closeout document and to ensure that what was agreed to be done has actually been completed in accordance with the requirement initially. And by having this simpler approach for task-based management, this helps to breed a managed by project culture, so that when people move into project management, they are used to the terminology of requirements and product descriptions and management information. And then what this does is it helps the whole organisation to operate in a similar way, where the decision support information is consistent across the board, whether it's small tasks or major projects. And everybody has that project way of thinking. And that's the way to help to breed that culture and to implement project management approaches in that respect.
So you think that PRINCE2 is useful for business sector, I mean private companies, or for government sector, for state bodies too?
Yeah, it's been proven for both. It's been successful in the private sector and the business sector. Private sector in the UK, public sector in the UK, most public sector bodies use PRINCE2 for their project management. This may be central government, local government and local authorities, the national health trusts, police, fire organisations, and general local strategic partnerships. They work under the same methods such as PRINCE2. It is the most used methodology, not just in the UK but globally, and that's because it works. It has a focus on business case and business benefits. Now in the public sector, business case and business benefits can mean something quite different to the private sector. Absolutely. In the public sector, a business case would look to deliver benefits such as efficiency savings in the public services that are provided. So we're not necessarily looking for profit. That's not what the public sector is there for, but we can look at efficiency. In the private sector, PRINCE2 works very well because it has the same focus on business case and business benefits, but quite often in the private sector, the business case is more financially based and profit based, where we can look at the return on investment and how this may work going forward over a period of time. And so we can factor the costs of the projects along with the cost of the operational use of the outputs. And this can give us an investment appraisal over a period of maybe 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, whatever is appropriate. And we use the PRINCE2 project management to focus on the project delivery or the project life, but then we can use benefit reviews and benefit management to ensure that we achieve the benefits that we originally set out to do. So it really applies to both public and private sector, mainly because of the the communication and standardization of those frameworks.
Good. I think it will be useful not only for business, I think for our public sector too.
Yes.
And the last question, what are your forecasts regarding the future, I mean the further development of the decision support information? It's the title of our interview today.
Yes, yes, the decision support information. Decision support information refers to the communication across our project teams and across our businesses. As we started this presentation, we talked about the strategic goals of any business. A successful business will clearly plan its strategy over a period of time in order to survive and to thrive. And in order to succeed with our strategic goals, we need to have change initiatives that are effectively managed. Effectively managed change initiatives will produce information for effective decision making. People can only really make good decisions if they're given good information. And good information comes from effective project management, in my opinion. In terms of the future of project management, I believe project management will continue to grow. We will see more professional project managers. Maturity and experience will grow. And I think we will be surprised when we find that most organisations, whether they be public sector or private businesses, will all ultimately have a project management function. I believe, and I don't think it's too ambitious, but I do believe that project management, if it isn't already, it will become as important to any business as accountancy, for example.
Yeah.
We all keep accounts for business, we have to.
Yeah.
And I think that we'll be moving into a period where we will see that we cannot afford not to have project management in order to succeed with our business change and achieve our strategic goals.
Thank you. So see you again in Astana.
I will be back
Kazakhstan.
very soon. You have a beautiful city, and I enjoy coming here every time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our program is over. Thank you for your attention. Bye.